everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of Sprites, Bytes and Pixels. Totally a different day. It's weeks down the line. You guys, we haven't seen each other in a very long time. And essentially, what we're going to be talking about today is turning the angles. Wilson has his back with his kitty cat here. But what we're going to be talking about is the pros to reselling. I feel as though resellers get so much hate that I really needed to have Bobby here with me so we could talk about some benefits and like some good positives that come with reselling. Now, before we get into that, sorry,
there are positives.
I mean, like maybe we have like 30-40 seconds of content.
Can we get the cat back?
Yeah. Just put the hat on the cat and we're good to go, Wilson.
Yeah. We might get sued by Dr. Seuss there.
Dr. Seuss. Get it? Dr. Seuss? You're getting sued by Dr. Seuss?
As in like suing your ass.
All right. Enough pun games for me. All right, so before we get started, let's do our segment. I said I was playing Horizon Zero Dawn last time we were on an episode. But I think I'm close to finishing it off now. So what I want to play next is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I think it's a fun game. It's another one of the games that I picked up and I stopped just because it was really, really difficult. And I died a lot, which I'm not very used to. So I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to try to beat it during my vacation time.
I've never played it, but I heard it's kind of like a Souls game. Like it is. It's real hard.
It's very similar to a Souls game with like the combat and I think how you grow your character.
Yeah, one thing that I thought is if you're a Jedi, you should be able to fucking destroy everything. And I just run like headfirst into every battle, and I can't do that. So it's a learning experience for me.
I've got a friend who said he beat that game within like, I want to say a week of release.
Wow.
So
that guy.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. All right, what are you playing, Bobby?
So like I said, I finished Axiom Verge, but because I'm in the middle of selling my house, I have had a copy of Maneater just sort of sitting there waiting to be played. And I was supposed to play that next, but then Axiom Verge just kind of came across my table and I was like, yeah, I'm going to play that. But Maneater, I've just heard it's so much fun. And just being a shark and eating everything in sight just sounds like a good time. Like somebody described it as GTA, but you're a shark.
What system is it?
What's up?
What system is it for?
PS4, but I was actually just talking to Wilson about it, and he said that there's some updates and stuff if you play it on the PS5. I don't have a PS5 yet, but I'm not one of those guys who falls into all the hype and is like, I gotta get one today, I gotta get one like release day. I'll come across one when I come across one. I had the opportunity to buy one and I passed on it.
Yeah.
So at retail, I let somebody else have it. So, but I that'll be my next one.
Really? I didn't know you had an opportunity to get a PS5. What
we had
made
them at
you
the store.
pass on it?
We had them at the store. I could have taken one.
Oh, okay. So what made you pass on it?
It was, like I said, I find that the first model of any console that comes out usually has some sort of issue. And, somebody who we know had to send one back. He had it for a week, Bowser, and I had to get something back. So, I'm very hesitant to buy one, day one, week one, month one. So.
Well, for anybody that wants to get a PS5 or is able to get a PS5, like, don't be dissuaded. I got mine on launch, and I haven't had any issues with it yet. I have heard about some people having issues with it with the disk drive. I think Bowser's turned into a brick. Bowser is one of our admins, by the way, for CDN. And have you been hearing about the controller drift by chance?
No.
I haven't know.
So just like the Joy-Con drift, the PS5 controller is apparently having drift, like joystick drift.
Interesting. And then there's also like the whole debacle with Cyberpunk 2, where it's like it looks good on a PS5, but on a PS4 it looks like absolute horseshit.
That is that's another, like, remember, that would be that. Let me try this again. I would like that to be one of our topics for one of our future episodes, talking about Cyberpunk and other games that were better looking before they came out.
Well, they should have released it in 2077.
Yeah,
it might have been ready by then.
I'd be dead. I'm probably dead by then.
You're not gonna
Cyberpunk 2077.
You're not gonna die by then. By then, I'm sure there's gonna be like virtual reality. We can just plug our brains into like some sort of like sprite that's out into the cloud. It will be.
Well, it'd be like that show, Altered Carbon. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
You have like a chip, and they just basically put you in a new friggin' skin.
Yep. That's gonna
you
be
live
like
forever.
I'd just be in like this pornographic simulation for like.
I'm waiting for VR to take off to the point where you just strap on a full bodysuit and it's sucking you off, and yeah, good times.
Family and kids show.
All right, that's the end of this episode. See you later. Bye.
Yeah, but like Maneater, you're right though. Maneater is a lot of fun. I wouldn't consider it like GTA, but it does have like some really zany missions. The amount of people you can kill. It does feel a little bit repetitive, but I do recommend it. I think you would have a great time with Maneater.
Well, you know me, I'm one of those guys who I hate, listening to a whole bunch of story, plot. Like I skip through a lot of stuff. So, I mean, there can't be much story with this. You're a shark, go kill him.
There's a little bit of like a silly kind of backstory to it, like a revenge story. But other than that, you're not going to get like a huge narration like Metal Gear Solid or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm just one of those guys who wants to play the game. Stop talking to me. Like Last of Us 2, I was killing myself. I was just like, are you kidding me? You're making me walk for like 20 minutes with some person and I can't do anything else except for listening to you talk. I'm like, I almost shut it off like multiple times.
How did that game win friggin' game of the year, man? What the fuck?
I mean, the gameplay is good. The story is okay.
Tsushima?
I never played that.
Don't get me started on Ghost of Tsushima, Robin. That's not fair. You're being mean.
Started playing the game, so I can't really get you started, Wilson. I've been trying to get you started.
I really gotta play it. Yeah. I already told you what's holding me back. I'm waiting for that, full edition, with all the DLC or whatever that they're gonna put on it. Like that's what I did with Horizon, and Ghost of Tsushima, I'm sure is gonna have that as well.
All right. Okay, what are you playing then, Wilson, or what are you looking forward to playing?
Actually, so I told you guys last episode that I played Axiom Verge and then Crosscode, and now, between that, I forgot that I had played The Messenger. Really good Metroidvania, kind of Ninja Gaiden game. It's got some really cool ideas that I'm not going to spoil. It's really funny, like really, really funny. I laughed a lot, and the music is phenomenal. Easily one of the best soundtracks that I've heard in the last few years. It's just super catchy with what it does, and it was made in Canada. It was made in Quebec.
Sweet.
There's a lot of cool stuff coming out of there.
Yeah.
Panzer Paladin.
Yeah, Panzer Paladin. Thank you. Yeah, Panzer Paladin is the other one. And I've already pre-ordered that. LRG had a physical of that, and I jumped on that right away.
A guy who I know, if I'm not mistaken, is Fred. I don't want to mispronounce it, but Fred Gemus. He's one of the Quebec, Montreal guys that I get to hang out with a couple times a year when COVID's not happening. I usually make a trip out there and go hang out at Arcade Montreal.
Oh, yeah.
Name drop.
Yeah.
Shameless plug. Those guys are awesome.
They are awesome.
Yeah. I was trying not to laugh for a while before I could see the dog's head. It just looked like Robin's head was in the cone.
Yeah, I know that the dog's head just keeps like disappearing. Like, what is that, magic dog?
He's an android. He's not really a dog. With whatever's happening. He also has the ability to continually scratch his face to the point that it starts to bleed. So now he's in a cone. He's in the cone of shame.
So hold on. The cone isn't because he's sick or anything. It's just because like he's scratching his face.
Yeah, because he went to the groomers after like 3 months, and like she shaved him down like a lot, and he got like razor burn on his cheeks. So he started scratching it and started bleeding, and then started scabbing, and he kept on going at it. So I took him to the vet, and now he's on a topical cream plus this cone. But he's just a wild boy, man. He's a wild child. Look at this face. Look at that face. Yeah. All right. Where were we? I forgot.
So, well, we've heard about Wilson's games, I believe.
Sweet.
So I guess we're going to start talking about Greasin people.
Yeah. So you guys said you have a pretty unique story in terms of how you two met, right? And
Yeah.
left us. Wilson, what's oh, nice.
See, I don't have my pets here. I ship my pets over to my in-laws, and they're watching them while we're getting the house ready. So
Nice.
I don't have an animal to show.
It's okay. You can use my Nyan cat in the background. We're good.
I'll just bring Angela in here.
All right. So wait, Wilson, what's the story between you and Bobby? How did you guys meet?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of really funny. The way I always tell people how I met Bobby was I hated his guts. I didn't like him. I thought he was out for himself, like a reseller, just like a selfish person. And I had decided that because we both used this. I don't know if you'd call it an app or a website. Is Virage Sale a website?
Well, it's an app now, yeah.
Okay, so we use this application called Virage Sale, and Bobby used to like beat me to all of these deals. Actually, he did it on Facebook Marketplace. He did it on, other selling
the auction pages.
Yeah. And I would miss out on these deals, and I messaged him, and I said, like, you're only in it for yourself, or I said something along the lines of like, you're not.
It was a message this long.
So one day I was at Games, which is now where Bobby works, which is that's kind of an origin story in itself. And I was there when Bobby didn't work there, and I was leaving, and he was walking into the store, and we just got to talking. He told me about Chrono Trigger, and I think I said to him, like, you're Bobby, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I know who you are. And I told him, like, about just like,
I think I said, like, oh yeah, you're that guy who wrote me that big asshole message.
It's something along the lines of like, I know who you are. I know your reputation and blah, blah, blah. But Bobby got to talking about Chrono Trigger to me, and he was like, yeah, I haven't played it in forever, and I really, really enjoyed it. I just got it again, and really, really loving it. And it was that conversation that kind of changed my mind about Bobby. I thought to myself, like, Bobby was only in it for buying and selling. He wasn't really a gamer at all. And it was that conversation that just changed my whole perspective on him. And I messaged him after our conversation, and
An even longer one.
I essentially apologized. I said, I apologize, man. Like, I had no idea you were a gamer. I thought you were in it for yourself. I sincerely apologize. It was fairly long, and he said, no hard feelings or something along the lines of that. And after that, like, we kind of became like good friends. I went to his flea market booth. We started hanging out, just bit by bit, and now he's one of my best friends.
It's a great story.
I grow on people.
And the sex is phenomenal.
Right?
Dry? Is it dry? Wilson, would you describe it as dry?
Dry?
Yeah. That's how he described. That's how Bobby says his handies are. So just wanted to know if that carries over.
Are deserts dry? Because I'd compare it to that.
Oh. Fair enough. Well,
family and friends.
Family and friends. And puppies and kitties. All right, so I think that's the incline. Oh, sorry, never mind. So Wilson, I think the response that you had towards Bobby being a reseller is one that a lot of people have, and I think whenever you look at the forums, everybody's harping on resellers. Like, it's like anytime you mention anything that's being sold at even like a fraction of profit, and I think there's a difference between a scalper and a reseller. A scalper to me is somebody that goes in and buys like 50 PS5s in order to sell them, whereas a reseller goes in and they buy collections from people, or they buy different items from people, and then they resell them at a higher price point. So
have you noticed that with the forums and with the Facebook groups, like, people are harping on resellers more than they used to. That's what I'm noticing now.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
someone
for sure.
selling an item and everybody's just shitting on this person. And I think to myself, like, I haven't seen this. Like, it just seems like a new thing, like a new trend, like everybody jumping on people. And I think it happened just after the PS5 started, like, being scarce and hard to find.
I don't feel like, myself or Robin or some of these other guys, Luke, Peter, like, I mean, I don't want to include the people who own stores, but like Luke, yourself, myself, we're looked at in a positive light. I find a lot of times we don't have people coming after us saying, we're terrible people and stuff like that. And I think it's just based on the fact that we're willing to work with people and people understand what we're doing. It's like Robin was talking about, I guess before we started this, there aren't a ton of guys who are out there who are willing to drop $5,000, $10,000, $50,000 to buy out a collection. Your average collector isn't going to need that many pieces or be willing to pay for that many pieces. And, we're providing a service, just the way anybody else would. The difference is, some of us don't have a storefront. Robin, you've now taken that next leap, and you've got your e-commerce site. You've actually paid for a physical location where you can house this stuff. Me, this has always been something that I've talked about for a long time. And I mean, who knows where I'll be in the next, 6 months, a year, or whatever. But I mean, I gradually just collect stuff, and you've got a backlog of inventory, and you're basically making stuff accessible for people.
Yeah,
that's the way I've always looked at it.
Yep, 100%. And I think, like, when you take a look at when you talk about you, myself, and people like Luke, I think one thing that we are good with is we have a really strong reputation, and we're not always just like we're not always constantly buying and selling. We're always engaging in conversation. We give people our time of day. We have good reputations, and that really helps us. I think, like, the biggest thing that I can say is when people are looking at, like, the biggest pushback that I see against resellers is that they're bad for the collecting community. They're driving prices up and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I have access to the same collections that you have access to. You have access to the exact same lots on Kijiji that I do. So the reason that I'm getting a decent chunk of them, or like me and you and like people that are actually actively doing this, is because we know what to look for. We don't have to spend half of our time on price charting and pricing everything out. In the back of our mind, we've done it for so long, and that's the experience talking. So it takes time to build this experience.
Well, I mean, I don't know about you. It's like, if on Facebook or Kijiji somebody posts a single game, but it's half price, I don't even think about it.
Me neither.
You're right? Like, I've tagged people in deals because it's something that I know that they want. What's up, Wilson?
No, that's what you've done. I was putting my hand up. Like, you've tagged me in deals.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I'm not saying that they're beneath me or whatever, but if I know somebody who's looking for something, absolutely, I'm going to tag them. I'm gonna put them, like, I'm not here to get one over on somebody. And, like you said, our reputation sort of help us out. We've been doing this long enough that I had a guy, I've literally done 3 deals with him in the last 2 months, where I bought out his GameCube collection. Then I bought out his NES, SNES, Genesis collection. Then he just sent me his N64 collection. What is it, 180 N64 games? Yeah. He reached out to me.
Yeah.
I don't even know that he shopped it around to anybody else.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, that makes me feel amazing. Right? It's, and I've always had this, mentality. If you're not happy, you purchase something for me and you're not happy, immediate refund. You send it back, immediate refund, or we'll figure out how to make it work. But you've got that option.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that goes a long way. And I think, like, even for me, like, what tends to happen is people know that I'm actively buying a lot, and they'll reach out to me. They'll be like, "Hey, Robin, can you keep an eye out for so-and-so game? Can you let me know whenever you get something like this in?" So have like a wait list or like a hunt list or whatever. So whenever I'm buying a new lot, I know if there's like particular items that a specific person wants, they're reserved for that person. It doesn't even get shopped to anybody else. It's like you get.
And I mean, in those situations, you can pay a little bit more for that item because you already have a buyer for it. And then on top of that, like, there's all these different little things. Like you could purchase a lot, and I don't know so much. Like we're both very, very competitive. right? So we can purchase these giant lots, and we're not taking the items and putting them over retail.
Yeah.
Right. We're also very interactive, like you said, with people. We were doing really fun stuff a few years ago with the power hours and, you know, just different kind of events that got people involved. And like that kind of stuff just kind of took off and blew up for us. And then it got to the point where everybody was doing it. We didn't come up with the idea.
Yeah.
I always say we didn't come up with it, but we made it cool.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Right?
What was Power Hour?
Power Hour was we would have a couple of reputable sellers, usually one or two of the admins, and we'd bring on a special guest, and those people would like rapid fire put up sales items, like items for sale. So it'd be single items or little lots of stuff, and you'd have 1 hour and you would just fire stuff off, and it was first come first like sold. The first person to write sold on it, they paid the money, and that was theirs. And I mean, I remember the beginnings of it. We were putting up like, you know, so much stuff and doing like $2,000, $3,000 in an hour.
Those days. I remember
right?
those days.
And like I said, I mean, other people started catching on, and they made it, you know, they made their own shows on their own Facebook pages, and now everybody's doing it. So it doesn't have that same kind of steam behind it, because we could do one tomorrow, but there was 62 of them that happened in the last 4 days.
Yeah.
So it is what it is, but I really like those days. I remember Jay Retro.
Yeah.
He posted up a Super Mario RPG, and this thing was tattered. It was rough, and I bought it from him because like I'm another seller. I bought it from his show, and I took it home, and I think I cleaned it all up, and it was either the same Power Hour or the week after. I reposted it because I had taken all the stickers off, made the thing look all nice, and I think I flipped it for like twice the amount.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Wilson, like even with you, like I know that you have a good reputation as a buyer, as like being a collector, and people that are typically resellers, they work well with you as well. Like you reached out to me about some repros that you wanted, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm happy to work out a deal with you, Wilson. Here you go, and I gave you a price that was like quite a bit below what my list price was.
It was very much a bit low. Actually, it's funny you mentioned them. They're actually right here.
Yeah.
I got Live a Live, Treasures of the Rudras, and Star Ocean. All in nice boxes, all reproductions, but I buy reproductions when they're translated. They're games that weren't released over here.
Stuff you couldn't get otherwise.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Stuff you couldn't get otherwise.
Exactly. You can't find these in North America. So, you know, I'm fine with reproductions like that. And yeah, like Robin gave me some great deals. And at the same time, Bobby's reached out to me and like, hey, do you want this? And he's not even selling it to me. He just gives it to me. I can show you a lot of stuff that Bobby has just given to me. Like Bobby will see something. He'll be like, I know someone who will want that. And it will usually be me. And he'll just, because
Wilson always wants the stuff that I'm so surprised. I'm like, why would anybody want Beat Mania?
I didn't catch the Beat Mania part, no.
Yeah, so what Robin, what just happened? Like,
so
where'd you go?
Had some technical difficulties. My internet cut out on me for like 3 minutes, but we're back. We're back to our SBP number 15.
Change your service provider.
Oh my God, yesterday.
Rogers.
That's all we talked about yesterday was changing service providers.
All right, Wilson, what were you saying? You guys were talking about Beat Mania or something?
Yeah, so yeah, I was talking about how Bobby, he'll give me a shout, and he was like, hey, do you want this? One of our intros for Sprites, Bytes and Pixels, that I edit, I showed a Beat Mania. I actually got that from Bobby. Bobby saw it at a store, and he messaged me, and he was like, hey, are you interested? And it was a good price, but I actually passed on it. But Bobby ended up buying it anyways, and he still, when I decided, hey, you know what, I changed my mind, I'll grab it, and I was like a couple days later, he still gave it to me for a decent price. Like, so Bobby and Robin, they both kind of they gave me these great deals. So like, I don't hate resellers. I just sometimes there's a situation where I want to get something and somebody else beats me to the punch, but I don't really see it as a reseller problem. It's more just like a hey, first come first serve kind of problem.
So I would say, like, when you take a look at resellers, Bobby and myself, we tend to get a decent chunk of lots. Like, we have pickup wars that's going on. And the only
Yeah,
reason
take a voice.
yeah, the only reason we can do that is because like we buy so much stuff, and like we're competing with a lot of other people out there, Bobby, for what would be like the same pool of stuff. It's different now that we've built this reputation, but I think it took a while to get to that point. And
Absolutely.
like we had to hustle hard to get to where we are. So maybe if you want to just talk about like what got you into reselling, and like how did you have to like navigate through the waters and become like successful at what you're doing.
Well, for me, I mean, it all started just because I wanted to play some of these old games, and the Super Nintendo was this system that I remembered and had all this love for. And I was on like auction Facebook pages, and that's where it really started for me. And like going back 5 or 6 years, I don't know if I was just smarter than the average guy, but I figured out how to snipe these auctions long before anybody else did. So it got to the point where it was like, if you just didn't have a higher number than me, you could not win. And I would just do the math, and I'd say, okay, this is what I want to pay. And I would wait until the very last, like it was literally 5 seconds. So 5 seconds before that auction ended, I would have a timer in one hand, the Facebook like app on my phone ready in the other hand, and I'd be having like my wife's phone with the timer, and I would punch in my number, and there was not enough time for somebody to outbid me. So either they had to have a higher number. What's up?
Was this eBay or Facebook auctions?
Facebook.
Okay.
Facebook. So I was getting so many collections and just one-off games. And it got to the point where it was just like sitting there. And I had amassed this really great collection. I mean, it wasn't crazy. It's not like I probably had, I don't know, in a 3 or 4 month period, I'd probably bought like close to $10,000 worth of games. And I would basically just keep piles and remember, like I'd have sticky notes of what I paid for it. Because that way in my head, I would have to, justify how I was going to trade something off to get something that I wanted. And I would sell off my doubles and use that. And my old business partner, this guy, Frankie, he worked at a flea market booth, and I would take stuff over to him, and I would sell him product that I didn't want or trade him for stuff. And that's how I ended up meeting Jesse, who owns the store that I work at, Games in Oshawa. And that's again how Wilson and I met. I was in there just trading off games so that I could get more games that I wanted. My fiance Angela, one day, she basically is a bookkeeper. She goes to me, "You need to keep track of this." So she made me a spreadsheet, and I basically just fired everything in, each individual lot that I purchased, how much I paid for it, and if I sold anything, how much I had back. And it had a pie chart, and it was like the most beautiful thing ever. This girl really takes care of me. So Jesse at the store had told me, you should probably go do one of these conventions. So it was, I can't remember what it was called, but it was in Toronto at the Sheridan. It was like,
was that Nader?
What's up?
Was that Nader's convention where there was like the pink Power Ranger there too?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It was one of his shows. And what was really funny is I reached out to them, and they said, well, we have this thing where if you're a new vendor, you get a free table. I said, that's amazing. Thank you so much. I'll take a free table. So I give them all my information. I think it was 3 or 4 days before the show. They said, do you want an extra free table? I guess they were having trouble filling it. So I say, yeah. So I set up this table. Jesse, the guy who tells me to do the show, is right across from me. And he had just spent like $500 on tables. And I'm standing across from him with 2 free tables. And at that show, I think I sold $1,600. Yeah. And I got home, punched it all into my little Excel spreadsheet. And it told me that I had broken even. Everything I owned was free. And I thought this was the best day of my life. I was like, I literally have zero investment, and I have this, I've got $8,000 worth of video games. And from there, it basically went from, me just continuing to collect and buying stuff. And then Frankie, the guy who I would sell stuff to at the market, he ended up getting let go. They fired him or something. And he's like, oh, I don't know what to do. Like this was like my dream job, hanging out at the market every weekend and playing games. And I said, you know what? If they fired you, you should compete with them. Open up your own booth. You've got a video game collection. Like, you can always buy it back. And he says, well, would you do it with me? So I took all the video games that I was willing to part with, and I went over to his house, and I made him match me dollar for dollar. We opened up a booth, and that's where it all really started. Like, we opened up at the Whippy Flea Market, and that's the rest is kind of history. Like, we rolled that into another booth at the Curtis Flea Market, and then eventually we got to a point where I felt I had to walk away because I felt I was doing too much of the work, and it was just tough having a partner. So I left. I ended up working with Jesse at the store. He made me a job offer, and we opened up a couple of other flea market booths, and yeah, that's sort of it. And I mean, the whole time I was doing online. I was doing a lot of buying and selling online, and sort of the reputation came along with that. I always try to treat people well. I'm always willing to pay for stuff, and I'm always willing to cut a deal.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. I think like we took a bit of a different route. So for me, I was like always hustling through Kijiji. And then just for the past couple of years, I've been on Facebook Marketplace. But before that, it was like mostly only Kijiji. But then I felt as though like I started around 12 years ago. And back then, Kamal was the first guy that I know of that was doing like the buying and selling through Kijiji. And then I started, and I think I was saying this on a previous podcast, but there were times that I was getting like 30, 40, 50 messages of people wanting to sell on a weekly basis. Yep. And I was like, jam packed.
I was finding lots on Kijiji back then.
Yeah.
But Kijiji is not the same place it was. I don't even bother with it anymore. I mean, you've got a couple of little tricks up your sleeve that I don't know. Like, you've got the cross Canada searches, and like, I'm sure your phone pings you whenever something pops up.
Yeah.
Where I just don't. And you also have a lot of connections in the States that I don't have. But I'm just lucky to get what I have, knowing that you know what you know.
I don't know. So I don't know that much. The thing is, like, I remember back then there were more sellers than buyers. If you take a look at Kijiji now, there's way more buyers than sellers. And people that are selling are resellers, and it's not people looking to just sell their stuff anymore. I'll share some of the tips or like the tricks that have helped me in the past. So I started off just like putting up buying ads on Kijiji. Then I switched from buying ads only in my city to buying ads across Ontario. So I would do like Guelph, St. Catharines, Hamilton, Kitchener-Waterloo, Barrie, and then Mississauga. So I had 6 going, and then I would pay for a monthly like subscription or whatever. So I'd be on the top ads. So I was spending like $200, $250 a month on just the ads. But in my eyes, I'm like, if I buy one good collection out of that, that more than pays, and I'm happy to deal with that. Then I realized that a lot of other people were doing the same thing. So what I started doing is I would put up ads like trading a Wii U for retro games, trading a PS4 for retro games, trading an Xbox One for retro games. And I found a lot of collections that people weren't even like, people didn't have posted, and they would reach out to me. In a lot of these cases, or some of these cases, they would have more games than the trade itself. So I would just pay cash on top. And my secret was I never really had a Wii U or a PS4 or an Xbox One. But if anybody made me a good offer, I just go and buy one. And I'd be like, let's do the trade now. So,
oh wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty sneaky.
It is, but I mean, like, I always had whatever I was advertising, I always had, and I would always offer. And then I think after that, what started the shift that I started seeing is other people were doing the same thing, and I'm like, okay, like I got to try something different. So I just focused on buying big collections, because it's like we were saying, I don't know if it's this episode, but not a lot of people, like a lot of people will compete with you for collections that are like $500 and under, but there's a much smaller pool that's going to buy a $5,000 collection or $10,000 collection. So I'm like, I want to save my time. I was on Kijiji like every single 10 minutes back then. And I'm like, I need a life. I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
Started going after the bigger collections. And now I think what I'm shifting my focus to, and this is something that you inspired me with, Bobby, is going into like high-end games, like sealed stuff. That's kind of what I really like. And in terms of like the US connections, it's honestly just like a couple of guys that we did a couple of good deals with. And it just goes back to reputation. When people know that you're a man of your word and you're not going to try to lowball them, I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know like there are resellers out there that have left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, mine
too. Because I've seen lots online where, something is ridiculously underpriced. And, you might not be the first person to contact them, but your immediate response is, let me message this person and offer them more money. Mm-hmm. Right. And then, there was somebody local here who would have messaged this person and say, well, I really want it for my kids.
Oh.
And that I hate it. I hate it. I had this happen where I offered this lady, I think she had, there was probably $1,000 worth of games there, and she had it listed for $50. And I messaged her and I said, look, I'll give you $500 right now. And she says, oh, I'm really sorry, but this other person just messaged me, said they want the games for their kids. blah, 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 blah. I've already told them I'm going to give them to them. They haven't arrived yet, but this is what I'm going to do. And I said, okay, if there's no persuading you, that's fine. Half an hour later, the same games, I think it was on Virage sale or it was on Kijiji, and then a half an hour later it was on the other one. So if it was on Virage, half an hour later it was on Kijiji, and it's the exact same games priced at $1,000. And I took a screenshot and I sent it to the lady. I said, I hate to, rub salt in the wound, but this is what just happened. I've had deals where, something was undervalued, and I said to the person, I'm coming over, I'm going to give you more money, and there's a possibility that you might see even more. So I show up, like the little lady, she had 10 PS2 games.
Yeah.
I get there, one of the games was Haunting Ground, and it was worth $200 at the time.
Yeah.
She had the whole lot for $50, and I said, I'll give you $100, and if I show up and stuff is the way I want it to be, I'll give you more money.
Yeah.
I gave her $100 just for the Haunting Ground and another $50 for everything else. And I explained to her why. Yeah. Right. And that same lady called me back, not even a day later, not even 24 hours later, she called me back. I've got more stuff.
Nice.
Right. And it always pays to ask if they have anything else.
100%.
Always.
Yeah.
One of my favorite deals, I went to go pick up a lot with Angela. It was a bunch of 64 games. And I got there and it was it was a daycare. So this lady's like ran a daycare out of her house and she had all these N64 games. And I said, do you have anything else while I'm here? And she goes, oh, absolutely. She goes downstairs, starts pulling out bins of stuff. And there were Super Nintendo games. Like she basically just kept going backwards in time. She'd been, running a daycare since the 90s. And then one of the bins had all the boxes.
Oh, shit.
And I was just like, hang on a second, I got to go to the bank. So I all the money I had on me, I put down on the table and I said, I'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was one of the greatest, experiences I had with buying a collection, just, asking. It always pays to ask.
100%. And I think one thing I started to do whenever I get into a dry spell, I just get this itch that I need to buy stuff. Like if I go a week without buying something, I'm just like, dude, like what the hell? Like it's kind of like my drug. Like hunting is my drug.
Welcome to my world.
So what
you do is you just give it to your wife and you say, here, I'm gonna call you in a minute, and you just show up and give her some money and take it.
Like, hey, I'm short on cash. Can we figure something else out? It's a win-win situation. But
is it?
It is. As long as it's not Sahara level dry, I think we're good. I think so. One thing I started doing, and this is like really hit and miss, is what I would do is I would go into like PS3 on Kijiji. I would go like Xbox 360, or I would go to like Wii U, and I would find people that are selling collections for those specific systems. And then I'd have like a cut and paste message. I'd be like, hey, do you happen to have any retro games for sale? And I'd list off like NES, SNES, N64. And my thought process there is if somebody's collecting for a certain system, there's a high likelihood that they're collecting for others and possibly older systems as well. So I would there were days that I would send out like 30, 40, 50 messages, and like I might get like 2 or 3 responses, one of which is like, yeah, I have like an N64 and 5 games. And I would find stuff that way. So it's like people see us finding stuff, but I don't think they understand how much work and how much effort and how much time we put into it. Like it doesn't just come to us. And I think like when people see resellers, they think that they're paying like 10% of market value or 20% of market value. That never happens, man. Never.
Like my fiance, she gets mad at me. She's better with it now because she seems to understand, but she would get mad because I was always on my phone. Always. Yeah. Like,
yep.
Spend some time with me. Get off your phone. Spend some time with me. Get off your phone. I hear it all the time.
Dude, I think like one thing that people like, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I never regret the collections or the lots that I buy. I always regret the ones that I missed out on because of like $50 or $100 or $150. So for me, it's like whatever offer I'm making, I always make my best offer first. So that way I don't have that nagging feeling in the back of my head that's like, Robin, you could have.
Yeah, but for Robin, now you're at the point where you're like, I get upset when I miss that lot. That like I missed it by $5,000, by $20,000.
I'm almost there, not there yet. I mean, like this car is just sitting in my driveway. That's totally on the road in the background. Yeah,
I'm collecting money. Robin's buying a car. Wilson's sitting in a room full of games.
Yeah, Wilson's like 7,500 games in his collection.
I was talking to Wilson the other day, and I'm like, Wilson, like, when's it going to get to the point where you just have too many games? And he's like, well, I've got this person who has games set aside for me. I have this person who's got a box, build it for me. And I'm like, so you probably got like another 50 games on the way, plus all the other ones that you bought. I'm like, you can't play them all. And he gave me the best answer. He's like, I can certainly try. And I was like, I don't know. I can't say anything.
Yeah, no, you can't.
Perfect.
One thing I also wanted to touch on is like, sometimes what people will do is they'll shop these collections around to each other. And it's like, most of us just talk to each other and it's like, hey, like, did you see this come up as well? And for the most part, if it's somebody I know, I'm not going to compete with them. I'm just going to like back off. I'll be like, yo, dude, if this is something that you're after, I'm not even going to bother competing with it. The best story I have with that is, and there was a lady that posted up a sculptor's cut in Kitchener, and Tang, who's one of the admins for CDN as well, he was trying to go after the same game. We didn't know that we were competing against each other, and I think it was listed for like $100 or $200. And I'm like, I will give you $350. Please hold it for me. I'm leaving my house right now. It's gonna take me like 40 minutes to get there. And I'm like, take the ad down. That's usually what I try to do. Is like, if it's a really good deal, I'll make them an offer higher than they're asking in exchange for them taking the ad down. And she's like, yeah, I'll do it, but she didn't. And then I'm on the way, and like 15, 20 minutes later, I got a call back. She's like, hey, yeah, I know you offered me $250, but I have a $300 offer on the table. I'm like, okay, but I'm already on the way. Like, what is the number that you want to like cut this conversation off? Because I don't want to show up there 40 minutes later and then have wasted 2 hours of my time. And she's like, well, if you can get to like 400, then it's a deal. And I'm like, okay, I will do 400 and like, I'll do 425 just so we're good. And she's like, okay, I will hold it for you. I'm not going to back out, nothing. And then I got a call 20 minutes later, and it's like, oh, I got an offer of like $500. I'm like, okay, I'm like 10 minutes from your house. Give me your number. I'm gonna offer you like 500 or like 525 or something like that. And she ended up holding it for me. I get there, I pick up the game, and then I posted up on Facebook, and Tang's like, yo, was that the one that's in Kitchener? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, we were both competing against the same one. And if either one of us knew that it was the other person that was going after it, we wouldn't have stopped this up. Yeah, we're all friends. And I think like the good thing is, regardless of how greasy people may perceive us to be, like we're solid with each other. Like I don't compete with you. You don't really compete with me. Like we eat well on our own, I would say. Yeah.
But you guys could have reverse negotiated with her. We're like, I'll give you 125. And then Tang's like, I'm down to 100.
$1.
Wait.
So Bobby,
I mean, there's like at the flea market, there's another vendor that's in the same building as me, right? And we'll have people who are selling product to us. And, you have people who come over and they say, that guy over there offered me $100, right? And we will have already called each other. Hey, there's a guy who just came over here shopping this over to me. I just offered him 80, right? And then he'll show up here and be like, well, that guy offered me 100. And I'll look him right in the face and say, no, he didn't, right? Yeah. I appreciate you trying, but we've already beat you. The best is at the swaps and the shows where people go, oh, that guy has it for 40. You better run and go get it right now. Exactly. Go get it. Why are you still talking to me?
Exactly.
There's a lot of times where I'll be like, I help Bobby at swaps, and I'll have an item. Well, we'll have an item and someone will be interested in it, and they'll be like, hey, how much is this? Ooh, it's so tempting. And I'll say to them, like, honestly, it's a great deal. And there's a chance that you come back after deciding not to get this and it's going to be gone and you're going to regret that. And I see it happen a lot with swaps. Like, jump on that deal.
Well, I mean, I'm very negotiable too, right? But I mean, when somebody comes in and fires you a lowball offer, I was just getting a call. You guys still got me? Okay, good. So somebody can fire you a lowball offer, but then try to back it up by saying so-and-so on the other side of the room has it. Why are you even talking to me?
Right. That's right? My response. It's like, yo, if it's like 30% cheaper than mine, buy it.
Right? I'll say, can you go pick it up for me? I'll give you the money right now.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think we've all bought a lot of games through the years. Have you guys ever come across like a sketchy or like a scary situation where shit was about to go down?
Yeah, I've got a good one. And the funny thing is, it sounded sketchy, but it ended up being pretty good deal. I was talking with this guy, and he had a Hogs of War for PS1, and Hogs of War now is it's a pretty pricey game. I want to say it's maybe 200. Do you think, like, Bobby? Hogs of War? Hogs of War one?
That's one that doesn't come up often. I think the last time I bought it, it was at least 120 bucks, but that was when I was collecting PS1 like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, so it's about, I want to say it's about $200 now. And the guy was selling it, and I said, well, how about, like, what are you looking for, anything? And he said, yeah, I'm looking for actually for a Super Nintendo. And I had an extra Super Nintendo, and we ended up trading. But the thing was, like, I didn't send it to him. I drove to his place to give it to him, and he was about 2 hours away from me. Wow. And I honestly, I took that chance. And he actually became a pretty good friend of mine. I haven't talked to him lately, but he's hooked me up on some pretty cool items, and he turned out to be a really nice guy. But, like, don't do that. Don't do what I did. Don't take that risk, because when I drove to his house, it was like, oh, it's ridiculous. I drove after work, and it was like a 2.5 hour, like, it was an hour and a half drive, and it's probably the worst rainstorm that I've ever driven in. So not only am I, like, nervous about getting to this guy's house, but I'm also driving in the worst rainstorm that I've ever driven in. And it was just all this stuff. I'm like, oh man, I hope this isn't like a foretelling of, like, what's gonna happen. But no, it ended up being all good. He was a really good guy, and he I don't know, just, but yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. I lucked out hard, because you read about these situations with people getting robbed, or, people dying. Like, people, I think there was like a guy who got murdered over an Xbox One. And yeah, like, you don't take those risks. It was foolish of me to do that, but at the same time, like, I made a friend, but it could have been significantly worse than it was.
I remember early on, I mean, probably the first couple of years of me buying games and stuff, I found some guy on Facebook or something, or Kijiji, and it was just really odd because the deal kept changing. So he had like an NES in the box and a few boxed games, and it wasn't a crazy amount of money, but it was probably like $500-600 or something like that. And I mean, to me at the beginning, that wasn't a small deal for me. And so I talked to this guy, and he's like, yeah, I've got this and this, and hang on, I'm going to get, I think I have more. So we end up getting all of the items together, and I said, okay, so where do you want me to meet you? And he gave me the address, and I look it up, and Angela, my fiance, she knows Oshawa. I'm not from here. I'm from Toronto. So I was very, very new and green to the Oshawa area, so I don't know the certain neighborhoods and which ones are good and which ones are bad. And she goes, this is like one of the sketchiest townhouse complexes in all of the city. So I'm like, okay, well, this is great. I'm going to go walk in here with, $600 cash and go meet some guy who I don't know. So I'm getting ready to leave. And then the guy changes the address, which for me is always a really strange and sketchy thing to do. So we go from being this really bad, sketchy complex to another one. So another sketchy complex. Like, do you know where Rideau is, Wilson?
Rideau?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know where Rideau is.
Yeah, so it went from like, Glen Street to Rideau or something like that. And so I go there, and before we left, I'm like, I'm not taking any chances. I took out the biggest chef knife I had, and I put it in the glove box. And then I took out another smalling, like paring knife. I'm like, one of those. And I put that in my back pocket. Yeah. And I went and met this guy. And it was weird because we got there, and I'm like, message the guy, I'm here. And then we're waiting for 5-10 minutes. And I mean, I've heard of stories like this, and there's just things can go wrong. And I was just like, I'm going to be prepared. I'm like, if some guy tries to rob me, he's not going to walk away completely unharmed with my money. That was my thought process. Yeah. And on the flip side of that, I went to sell, I got into Lego very briefly, and I bought a whole bunch of sealed Lego collections, like sets. And I met a guy who was from Toronto in East York, from a neighborhood I used to live nearby. And I knew that these apartments were not very nice. And this guy was like, yeah, I'm going to buy all of it. and I think I had like $1,500 worth of Lego. So I'm like, okay. So I went there with Mitch, who we all know, and Mitch, he's like, he collects knives. So he's like, here, take this, take this. And I had like 3 knives on me, and this guy comes out with a shopping cart, loads up all the Lego. And what was funny is that he paid me in $100 bills. We drove away, and then 5 minutes later, he's like, "Oh, you didn't give me this, 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 and this." They were sitting in the back of the car, right where the window, like above the back seats. So we had actually ripped him off. So we had to turn around and come back.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, like there's situations I've never been like held up by knife point or gun point or anything like that, thank God. But you know, there are stories, and you got to be careful out there.
Yep. I think for me, mine wasn't like too crazy. It was that barnyard lot that I bought out.
Like Deliverance.
Oh yeah, that one was funny. It was so Rudy, who was a good friend of mine, like we like there's this lady who reached out to me. She's like, yeah, you know, my husband was a collector. Unfortunately, he passed away, and now I have all of this stuff that's sitting in a barnyard. Do you want to come check it out? I'm like, sure, I can come. That's not a problem. She's like, yeah, make sure you bring a big vehicle. I'm like, okay. I have a RAV4, which is decent. I can fit a lot of games in there. So I pick Rudy up and we drive down. And this was in Aurelia, so it's like a hour and a half ish drive for me. And we get there, and it's like this house is in the middle of nowhere. It's like a farmland, and it's getting dark, and we have to drive through this like tree cairned like entrance into this acreage. And I drive in, and I don't call her. I don't say anything. I'm like, Rudy, we're gonna die today. And I'm telling him like, yo, something's gonna fucking happen. I'm gonna die. You're gonna die. We'll see what happens. And we drive in, and then like we look back, and the lady's just standing outside this place, and she has like 2 German shepherds with her. I'm like, fuck. I guess now we know how we're gonna die. It's gonna be getting mauled.
You ever see that movie Wrong Turn?
Exactly. So we get out. And she was actually a really sweet lady. I didn't end up dying. I'm still alive today. So is Rudy. But this lady had like legit a barnyard full of video games and like PCs and like all this crazy stuff. And then at the end of it, I think I had to take my RAV4 2 or 3 times, and then I had to take a U-Haul cargo van at least once. And it was a nuts amount of inventory that this person had put together. But yeah, it was like, it seemed really sketchy because she wouldn't send me photos. She wouldn't really do any of that kind of stuff. She's like, you just have to come and you have to take a look at it. And sometimes that's just what people are comfortable with, just because technically they're not as inclined. And you just got to take a flyer. And I'm glad I took that flyer, because that was one of my biggest buys.
I mean, it could have went that way, or you and Rudy could have became sex slaves for her.
Yeah, and her dogs.
And her dogs. Oh my God.
Yeah. That was a possibility. I'm glad it didn't work out. I mean, it didn't pan out. Yeah.
So the bottom line is, don't be like us. Don't take these risks.
Yeah.
Sometimes the reward isn't worth it. It was for those.
All of our stories worked out well.
It did work out well, but
you should
again,
do this. Do
like
it.
you said before, like we said before, like there are people who, get it much worse than us. Like I said, someone died from an Xbox One. Just over a goddamn Xbox One, someone got shot.
And it's good to take people with you. If it's like a big transaction, like I have a friend named Manny. You guys know him. He's like a big dude. And if I have to go somewhere that's kind of sketchy, one time I had to buy a lot from Jane and Finch, and it was like $1,000 or $1,200. So I took him with me, or I take him and my cousin.
You said Jane and Finch?
Yeah, Jane and Finch. Yeah, you gotta hustle hard, man. Or like all of my friends are really big. So like my cousin's like 6'4", 250 pounds. Manny's like 6'2", 210 pounds. And like if I ever feel as though it's something sketchy, I'll just take those guys with me, and nobody tries anything ever. Yeah. Have good friends. That's another.
You gotta have the hustle, and you gotta have the muscle.
That's nice. Hustle and the muscle.
Jane and Finch, though, like that's
well, I mean,
great.
I'm from Toronto, and I mean, I grew up in metro housing. Like I grew up in government housing, and a lot. I've taken Angela to places where I used to live. Where you're from, like Mississauga, that way. Rathburn in the 427. Okay. So I used to live there, and the apartment building I lived in there, I took Angela by there. She wouldn't even get out of the car.
Oh shit!
There's like bullet holes in the front windows of the entranceway and stuff, and it's like, I mean, when you were a kid, you didn't even think about, what you were living like. It was, I don't know. Luckily, we've all moved up.
Yeah, no. When like we came to Guelph, like that was the first city that we lived in, and we lived in a really sketchy area where there was like always police raids in our apartment building and like a lot of shady shit happening at all times.
Yep.
So yeah, like back then, I would not think twice about it, but I would not want to live in a spot like that right now, knowing
Yep.
what
Like I still have friends who are still living in those same buildings, and like their parents that like I remember are still living there, right?
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I'm glad
Yeah.
we all got out of it. Sorry.
So there are ways to also protect yourself. If you're gonna do a transaction, like it doesn't have to be like a huge transaction, but if you got like a smaller transaction, you can always ask that person if maybe they want to meet in like a public area, and that way you guys protect both of yourselves. You know, and sometimes a seller is just as worried about who you are as you are with them. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I've done a lot of parking lot deals, Tim Hortons deals.
Yeah. We've
it's very smart.
We've got a police station meetup in, I don't know if you guys have that in Oshawa, but we have like a couple of police stations that you can do like meetups at, like public meetups for Kijiji and stuff. So when I bought those Pokemon sealed games, the guy actually proposed it himself. He was coming down from like Niagara Falls or something. And he's like, hey, Brampton or Mississauga, they have these like meetup spots. And I'm like, sure, I'll meet you there. And it's really cool because they have like cameras all over the place. You're on police property. So the chances of them trying something is going to be very, very low.
I didn't even know about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice.
I know that Calgary, somewhere in Calgary has that as well. I have heard about these police meetups, but I didn't know that we had any in Ontario. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think there's 2 in Brampton and like 2 in Mississauga as well.
Actually, no, come to think of it, I think there's one in Hamilton as well.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe. I don't remember.
I think it's a great idea for them to do that.
Yeah, and you know, that just shows that it's a problem. Like if the police are creating this area for you to feel safe, like that's why you got to look out for yourself.
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe they're just realizing that there's enough of these interactions happening.
Yes,
creating a safe space for it isn't a bad idea.
Or even
like stuff's going to go bad.
Yeah, we talk about it from a safety standpoint, but what if it's like you're a sneaker collector, Bobby? What if you're out there and you're buying like a really crazy expensive pair of sneakers and they end up being knockoffs? And you as a buyer don't know that, and you go back to the police station. You're like, "Hey, can I pull up the videotape from this time on this day?" Maybe that's something that you can use.
Interesting. Yeah. Yep.
So I
haven't bought a pair of sneakers in like a month. It's driving me crazy.
Like the same. It's the sneaker itch, right? Not the gaming itch. All right, cool. I think we're really good on time on this one. I think we're closer to an hour. So
episode 24, sneakers.
No.
Video game
Bytes and sneakers.
Video game team sneakers, Wilson. Nintendo sneakers.
No.
No? Okay. All right. Well, we tried.
Welcome to Sprites, Bytes and Pixels, episode 24. Here's some Nintendo sneakers. See you next time.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
No problem. Thanks so much for joining us, Bobby. And, this was a great episode. We got to shed light on the positives of being a reseller. And hopefully people will stop hating on us or hating on resellers in general. And yeah, I think that's our spiel for today.
We're here for you.
Yeah.
We're here for you.
To help your collections grow.
That's right.
Awesome. Cheers, guys. Thank you so much.
Ciao, guys.
All right. Bye.